What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house. It's free content season. I mean, it's Banlist season, with October 1st having the Forbidden and Limited list expire to where it can be updated. A lot of your favorite content creators are going to have these kind of videos in your sub feeds of predictions, where I think this is the problem card, and that's actually the kind of game I want to play more in depth than usual. I want to point at multiple different decks and engines and go over the argued cards for hits on the list and say, I think this is the problem card. And if you disagree, let me know in the comment section down below. But first, we're going to go over a couple honorable mentions that can't be ignored in the room that really don't have fingers pointing other directions. The first is Imperial Order, which would be the first eroded card to come off of the ban list to rejoin the ban list if it did get banned. Tons of players are complaining about this, and here's why it's more of a problem than it once was. There is a little other finger pointing. You can deck thin more than ever, and now you have a card that lets you dig 6 and see those power one-ofs like never before. But I don't think Pot of Prosperity really needs to be hit. It has so many restrictions, it adds consistency, but it also has just so many restrictions for the power it offers. I feel like Imperial Order, the card that is a floodgate that shuts off a third of the game, all of the spell cards, that's really a problem card. But if you have a different opinion on it, oh, just get good. Draw the Cosmic Cyclone, the 5-head, play the outs, and see them. I don't think that's necessarily the same versus starting off when you win the dice roll. Also, with Tri-brigade, most fingers point at Revolt. I haven't heard other takes. I've heard nobody say limit Fractal to one, do this or that. And Konami's going to have those Megatons coming around, so they're selling reprints of cards, and they don't want them dead on arrival like 2017 Zoo, where you had a couple weeks, didn't you? Oh, wow, the community's really mad. Let's not do that again. So with Revolt, it's something that wouldn't murder the deck if you put it to 1. It definitely would lower its consistency. Maybe people slow down on the engine, but the deck can still play. That choke point of, oh, don't go spell me on my non-targeting banish, return from the different dimension combined with soul charge to get these other effects and advantage. Yeah, it's a crazy card, and I do think this is where most fingers point, but let me know if you have a different Tri-brigade hit to not murder the deck and keep it around, but you feel like is fair. And finally, I don't know where you start with Prank-kids without really hurting them. Konami probably doesn't have reprints anywhere on the horizon planning to sell this deck or anything. I would ask Pac probably how he would see this getting hit, but I don't have a good finger to point anywhere without murdering that deck. Like ban Meow Meow, you're back to where you were. That would really freaking hurt. And with that being said, let's start What's the Problem card with one of the favorite talks of the format, Dragoon. Oh, this is finally being played in meta decks. It's in Drytron, it's in Stun, it's in everywhere. It's not everywhere, but the argued cards for the problem card with Dragoon are Dragoon himself, which is a powerhouse once on the field. You have Red Eyes Fusion, allowing you to basically send the materials from deck and just get him out. And then Verte, which can't even be Ash Blossomed when using its effect, so that you can send those mats and get him out. You would have to Effect Veiler or Imperm. Usually other negates are already set up on the board by this point. It's the final play of a lot of people's turns. So with these 3 cards, last night my opinion actually was Dragoon's the problem card itself over Verte. Verte's a super niche tech in metagames where you've seen Rainbow Neos has cool applications coming forward, and I feel like when you take away Dragoon, nobody's really complaining about this card. But there is that argument of future building where fusion cards have to be looked at for their use with Anaconda. I don't think that's the biggest deal. I think Dragoon more so is the present problem, but after thinking a lot more about it, Red Eyes Fusion, if you take this away, people have to work way harder for Dragoon, and then it feels rewarding actually for it to come out. And when you see it, it's like, yo, you actually brought him back out if you ban Red Eyes Fusion. So I feel like I'm more leaning towards Red Eyes Fusion being the problem card now, where I originally thought it was more Dragoon. I wouldn't be too mad seeing Dragoon if you had to work a lot harder to bring him out. But what do you guys think in the comments section down below? Next up, we actually have a little card called Zeus. I would love to see this guy go to 1, but I feel like with Megatons coming, it's unlikely. That would be the closest. Forbidden, probably not happening. Now, what's the problem card versus him? Mostly Borbo, which wasn't a problem till Zeus. Hands down, I think Zeus is the problem card when it comes to Xyz. The fact that he can chain to himself, the fact that you can attack with a Zeus that has a material and stack another Zeus on top the next turn is also absurdity to me. What it must feel like to actually put a Starlight Zeus on a Starlight Zeus. Borbo attacking directly and hurting the Zoo engine more just to keep Zeus around. No, Zeus is still finding its way into other decks with Downward as a material, and this, look at Exton Knight. He spent his time on the list. This should definitely spend time on the forbidden list at some point, but I find this to be the problem card personally when it just comes to Xyz Zeus being splashed around. Drytron has a lot of arguments. A lot of people dislike Herald for that negate. I feel like you can have more answers than ever before between Droplet, Dark Ruler, no more cards like that. Eva for the resource management, and one that's come up a lot more surprisingly in my stream, and I think I agree with it, is Beatrice. Now, Burning Abyss players, please, calm down. I know. Beatrice has been a problem multiple formats for her Foolish Burial ability with level 6, and you do have Destiny heroes about to be on the doorstep again, where Malicious was one of the problems with it, but I feel like Beatrice, she finds herself format after format into these decks where she becomes a problem, and you even see future proofing on cards where usually a card says something along the lines of what's on here, where the Synth monster in the graveyard can't activate its effect same turns. You've seen more cards built like this to avoid the Laval Chains, Beatrices, etc. With Curious, the summoning conditions are so hard that you did see Curious Griffin, Nightmare Griffin, played in one format, but I feel like the resources that Eva offers, if you hit it, it's a softer hit. I feel like if you take care of Beatrice, and we're also talking about the Dragoon engine, Drytron's relatively dealt with, and the Omni Negate ending on the board that I hate so much, well, you have so many different answers you can play between Kaijus, Dark Ruler, and the more Droplet, and those reprints coming up for Droplet. We'll see how people feel after the list and after we get some reprints. Okay, this is funny to me because Rhoda comes up as, like, constantly talked about. Tinky was put on the OCG list, but we have another searcher that a lot of people want to see hit, and that's Nadir Servant. So, which is more powerful? Rhoda, Nadir Servant, or Tinky? And all my stream mostly agreed that Nadir Servant is the most powerful out of the three in the current environment. Usually the any two warrior decks have a lot of their warriors limited, and if you put the Rhoda up at more, they actually feel like Nadir Servant is the more unfair card despite being stuck with a certain deck. I do agree consistencies should be hurt for this, but they're also selling reprints of Dogmatika cards most likely coming forward. We've seen a Dogmatika common with Tinky, and we're still talking Tri-brigade, I suppose. Putting it at 2 actually is the first semi-limit hit from the OCG in a long time that just felt right. Lowering consistency, but still keeping a card around that's pretty cool. I like that one, and with these two, I think they both deserve a little hit, but Nadir Servant's definitely more powerful. Now back to what's the problem card, Mystic Mine, Terraforming, or Metaverse. I think Konami has stopped making power field spells for the most part for archetypes, and people bring up, well, if you bring back up Terraforming, there's more ways to Alistair than ever. You know what feels really good when they activate Terraforming? Dropping a Droll and Lockbird. Let me tell you what. It is also Ashbait because you don't know what you're playing against. You could be scared of Mystic Mines coming or something like that. And I didn't actually know that the OCG had this at 1 till chat told me last night. So I would love to call Mystic Mine the problem card. I think it's the reason why you have this, put down to 1. And I feel like you could see interesting niche meta interactions in the future, like Metaverse for Necro Valley, Metaverse for Secret Village of the Spellcaster. Much more fair floodgates that have appeared slightly in metas and more people are a fan of seeing when they appear. Like Necroz also saw both of those in that format. But Mystic Mine, by far, its limitations to the game, it's about time we did something about it, I would hope, but I just don't see Konami doing anything. Now, what's the problem card once again? We have Shaddoll Schism versus Winda. The self-protected walking floodgate to an extent versus the card that enables her while you dump resources from the extra deck. I feel like Schism's more the problem. Window was not a problem until recently. You even had Shtolls back in the meta, yet dinosaurs were still uprooting them, a deck that loves to special summon to an extent, and I feel like Winda, by far, even though she is, we'll have another self-protecting walking floodgate on this list, even though she has all of that going for her, she is very, once you take away those graveyard resources to make her in free dumps from the extra deck, I think she's a lot more fair, especially again when we mentioned how many tools end up further than Ultimate. Like you can hit her with the Imperm and not just the Droplet or Dark Ruler and the more. Those are also still options though. You can still Kaiju her. There's just so many ways to deal with Winda that it doesn't even become draw the out 5-head. It's more so Schism enabling her is the true problem here, I feel like. Now, with the Eternal format, what's the problem card? We have Konami bringing back Engage and Mirage Stalio last format, and a lot of people were left crying of, where's my Harpoor or where's my Colossus? So out of these four, what's the real problem card? I would have said Engage a long time ago, and you did see some strikers top. I hate how it interacts with time, but I overreacted. I'll say that, I'll own myself. I do think that you're seeing a lot less representation than I thought, and while it's doing decent in the metagame and you're going to run into it at tournaments, you're going to go into time with it, it's not as big of a problem as I thought. So between these two, which one do I think could come back more? Definitely Harpoor, but I do think that this is blown out of proportion. Colossus is unfairly pointed out. Oh, Corridor's why it can't come back. Oh, Chaos Dragon decks would get to just splash it in. I feel like Colossus at 1 is fine considering how we dealt with it at 3, and when only one's on the board, it's a lot less threatening, and you'd still have so many ways to deal with it. Where this card, Gearsu didn't even get the chance to run. It just started out walking and kept walking. I would love to see Orcus have a little update, have Harpoor at 1 be able to play its engine, where you gave back every other Eternal format piece its engine. But let me know, do you think this is the bigger problem, or is Harpoor? I personally think it is Colossus. Now, Pendulum! You thought I would leave it out, and some ban cards. What's the problem card on the ban list versus what could come off? We have Electromite, Astrograph Sorcerer, Monkey Board, and Kieran. I personally don't think Kieran can come back as a self-protecting bounce that has double protection. You can't target or destroy this man's, but you do have more ways to hit it than ever, as we mentioned. Monkey Board I don't think is a problem at all either, so I think these two are relatively safe to come back. I think seeing Kieran at 1 would be interesting to really look at how people would build engines with Magispectors or not build them. Now, between these two, I think Electromite is better and healthier for the game than Astrograph, and let me explain. I see Halka-Fibrex, I see Isolde, and they've run free and had other cards die for their sins, where Electromite really wasn't popping off all that hard. You would see 1 to 2 Pendulum decks top per event max with her in the deck, right? But with Astrograph Sorcerer, that resource management, body on board, ability to get out there, combo extension, also, like I said, the resource, it just does everything. And in combination, if you brought both back, I would call Astrograph the problem card between the two. So that's my personal take. I would like to see Monkey Board off the list. I would like to see this at 1 as well. Not off the list completely. Try Monkey Board at 1 for a while, 2, and Joker at 3 maybe. That 1 card scale's not that big of a problem anymore, and it's more stuck with certain archetypes. And Kieran, even though I feel like it shouldn't be, out of all of these is less of a problem than the other two. Thanks for watching today's video. Did you enjoy the game? Did you agree with some of my takes, disagree with some of them? Which engine cards, and also, you know, within the decks themselves, cards would you hit versus the problem? I know a lot of people are going to take Beatrice as a hot take versus the actual inboard versus the resource game, but I do feel like Beatrice actually deserves the point out of how cards have been built after her inception. Please subscribe if you haven't already. What are you doing if you haven't already? Like the video if you did enjoy this conversation, and I look forward to hearing from you guys all day.